So I'm going to follow on a little bit closer to what Wendell started talking about yesterday in terms of the relationship between art and architecture and landscape. So it's a somewhat enigmatic title, isn't it? Which I've interpreted to mean just what we do, why we do it, and what our influences and preoccupations are, the baggage that we carry with us into any new project, and the process of understanding clients and context and program, and the methodology that we use, where it comes from the germ of an idea to a detailed language in the realization of a project. What never ceases to amaze me is things like this. The personal and creative inspiration that lies behind the power of the human spirit to conceive the extraordinary. Why on the earth like this, should anyone decide centuries ago, in spare time that they never really had, to create works of art and spiritual significance they would never really see? These are the Nazca lines that many of you know, presumably in Peru, inscribed in the desert. I now live not far from these extraordinary works of landscape art. Silbury Hill here is the biggest man-made object in Europe. Built 5,000 years ago, constructed 5,000 years ago. It's so large that archaeologists can't conceive of how it was built, nevertheless why. Fast forward about 3,000 years, you get to this, which is very close to where I was brought up and influenced me hugely. It's the beginnings of the great landscape tradition in English architecture and landscape design. John ia&b, a retired politician, reordered the water gardens of this part of the River Skell in North Yorkshire, and never ceased working on it throughout his life. It was an amazing creation of abstracted water landscapes that he created. And so for me, it was great when I had the chance to be taught by Charles Moore in the early 70s, when he was known not for the later sort of postmodern aberrations that came out of his office, but for an extraordinary series of beautiful houses on the west coast of the States. And working here at Sea Ranch with Larry Halprin, landscape designer, they created, in a sense, the first ecological impact assessment study of a landscape, looking at topography, looking at rainfall, looking at wind direction, looking at solar energy, and looking at ecology and environment. All these grainy images from the 60s were actually the first time anybody had done a really strong environmental assessment to come up with a building that is a beautiful kind of introverted courtyard scheme, blackened barn-like timber structures that emerge from the ground in a similar way to the exposed rocks and trees of that landscape. They belonged here. Vincent Scully, who also taught me at Yale, once referred to architecture as an intense humanistic science. And I quite like that. I like the phrase because I enjoy the science, the understanding, the precision, the rigor of architecture. And I like the logic and the syntax of structure. But today I'm going to focus on another preoccupation. It's that intensity that Scully talked about. It's architecture being an art form, a social art, and a collaborative art. Although we're usually responsible for making the first marks on the paper, or the first lines on the ground, we are often doing that. It's our duty almost to do that on behalf of others. We're composers and orchestrators and conductors, and as Wendell said yesterday, we're also cooks. And I find it difficult to talk about myself as an artist, but I have no doubt that architecture is an art form. And our favourite work is always working with artists. So I'm going to address these issues of what we do, why we do it, by reference to working with artists, making spaces where artists can create and perform, spaces where they can experiment and be educated, and working in collaboration with artists, sharing creativity and craft. There's just some beautiful little 1960s shots of Sea Rush. So starting here at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, I've been working here for about 20 years, and I was called up originally by the director who said, "Can you build me a building in 13 weeks to house an extraordinary set of sculptures by Anthony Carra last year?" And stupidly there, I said, "Yes, of course, we can build something in 13 weeks." And he said, "I want 200 square meters, and it's going to cost less than £50 a square foot." We know it's very, very cheap by English standards in those days. And we produced this building here, which you see this little oval shape in the walled garden there. I should say this is an amazing sculpture park. There are about 3 or 4 significant sculpture parks in the world. Some of you might know Louisiana in Denmark, and Storm King in New York, and Hakone in Japan. This is the biggest, and it has 22 Henry Moore sculptures, and it has an extraordinary landscape, capability of our English landscape. And they wanted an indoor space. They didn't have any outdoor spaces. So we produced this for them in that 13 weeks, from a drawing, a little sketch at the weekend, to actually finishing the building and opening it 3 months later. And that's the extraordinary amount of sculpture that went into it. And what I enjoyed about this was getting a telephone call from the director saying, "It looks as though this giant seagull has landed in our park." And I thought, well, that's amazing, because we've created something in such a short time, and it's created a sculpture. And then I thought, well, I'm not supposed to be creating sculptures. It's the artists and the sculptors who are supposed to be creating the sculptures. And so I was kind of a little bit concerned about that. But when we later were asked to do a master plan for the development of this site, what we did was to create a series of buildings that actually are much more modest than that great seagull of a building. They're buildings that nestle into woodland and are tucked under landscape. So that was our master plan, which is then imprinted onto the landscape, and you can see an entrance road from the right heading to a car park, a collecting route, linear route that goes into a visitor centre that goes down into the semicircular 18th century beautiful walled garden. So what we were doing was creating a minimalist line in the landscape, in this enormous great landscape of 600 hectares. And it looks a little bit more dominant from here because you can see the roof of the visitor centre, but it really it very much fits into an existing grove of trees there. And it just emerges, the visitor facility emerges and faces on the one hand the park, and then as you go through, you're collected by this is working with an artist who works with letters in every surface, every material. He's a graphical artist working in letters, and what we did here was create a 100-metre long pathway. We suddenly had the idea of, well, we could make money out of this, so we sold everybody their name. They could have their name cut into this half-inch thick checker plate of steel. And we made £50,000 by commissioning an artist to create it. And eventually our visitor centre emerged out at the other end of the glade. But while you're going through the glade, you are shaded, the south-facing glazing there is shaded by oak trees that we built right up against. And of course, the glazing itself becomes the nice thing about this, creating any building for artists, they will work anywhere. It's places that you don't realise that they would work. So it's great to see this big glass screen being used in that way as well. And then our building emerges and drops down a level into the space that leads onto a gallery that is tucked underneath the landscape. And so this is a section through that gallery which is as minimal an impact as you can possibly have to create such a big building. It's a 4.5 metre high building. But if you look at the view from there is the view from here over that landscape. And I have had a discussion with, when you're in a place like that, you meet all these amazing people. It happened that Anish Kapoor was wandering around, and he was talking about things that he might create, and I was talking about the problem that we had with stopping people walking from the grass here and onto the roof here. And I designed an upstand for this roof light here. He said, no, you must lower the glass down into the ground, because then it will look like water in the grass. And indeed it does here. So the white strip there is just the water, it's the glass, the reflection of the glass. And I said, well, how do you stop people walking on the roof and falling off? And we used an 18th century device called a ha-ha. You know what a ha-ha is? It's a bit like this. It's a ditch rather than a bit of wall, so you can't go across it there. And there's the ha-ha. And then we planted it. We planted it with vegetation here, so there's the apparent line continues here. You don't have to have a railing here. But here, so you've got a potential display space here, a big gallery space here that's a display space, the concourse here, which is the other, and more display areas here. So you're creating, by putting this very simple horizontal line into the landscape, you're creating a multitude of spaces for other people, other sculptors to display their work. And there's that's the landscape, the new landscape that we created, and the concourse. And they made the gathering space outside, which works really well on opening days, looking back to the visitor centre. And the galleries themselves then are just these very, very simple 12 metre square boxes, 5 metres high, lit from the front when you choose to move the sliding screens, and lit from the back through a roof light. And this is a conventional kind of sculptural display, a retrospective of Chadwick's work. James Turrell came along and said, I want to create artificial light here. Unusual. He created his own sky space down in the park himself. So he created, we blacked it all out, and he created this. But my favourite exhibition here was done by a sculptor called Andy Goldsworthy, who went into the studios, the four spaces there, and said, I don't want any electrical light on here because the daylight works so beautifully. So for 6 months, we took out all the light fittings, and the space became very pure. And the daylight is just as you see it there. And the surprises that you get, we should have worked it out, I suppose, beforehand, but I think it's very beautiful the way the natural light creates this beautiful curve. So from all of these rectilinear elements of the building, very, very simple, minimalist rectilinear elements, daylight comes in and creates a curve because of the blockages each side there, I guess. And there's our strip of water in the landscape. And finally, after about 5 years, this opened about 10 years ago, Spanish sculptor Jaume Plensa came along and they gave him, usually what they do is they give the whole park to a sculptor for 6 months. Plensa came along with these extraordinary heads and situated them on top of our building, and we have this kind of monumental space filled with these extraordinary heads, which are about 15 metres high. Works very beautifully in that landscape. So we continue to work there, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to work with that landscape, with those artists, and a sort of continually regenerating cycle, and seeing how the building is used by other artists. This is a different type of space for artists. It's a space for art education, a great history of this place, the Manchester School of Art and Design. This was the poster for the exhibition that they produced, the summer exhibition, before we got the job, and we kind of took this and looked at it and talked to the heads of the department, the dean and the students, what we realised was that what they needed was a space where landscape and architecture and the various art and craft forms would come together and may create weird, wonderful things like this. But the synergy that comes from integration in the arts was what they were really looking for, rather than a disparate series of buildings. So the building that we were given to start with was this black and white striped tower, which is a 1960s building, Chatham Tower, that people liked. They enjoyed it as a building, but it overheated, it's energy inefficient. Our task really was to renovate that and to extend it and develop it. So there's the Chatham Tower at the end of this street with the old art school, the red brick art school, on the left-hand side there. Very distinguished Victorian building. The first marks that we made on the paper were to think about taking that art tower, integrating it with a gallery space and a space that we called a design shed, which was a new 21st century version where art was going to be made and taught. And the diagram on the right is just thinking about the external spaces, including the roof spaces, that then become part of the gallery and the school itself. And what we have there, so this is the finished building, and we transformed the tower by overcladding it. We turned it from white to black. We kind of like the idea of black being a more neutral canvas on the outside of the building and a somewhat enigmatic feel to it. And our new building there, you can see with the vertical lift tower and connecting the existing building with the new. And the new building then with the lift tower here, this is looking at the display area, the gallery area, the window for the school onto the city. That is where all the fashion shows take place, the architecture shows, the grand gatherings and meetings happen. So it's a 6-story high space that is a window for the city. And that's it in reality, completed. And as you can see, some of it is, it's not fully glazed. It's north facing, therefore we can allow a lot of glazing. It works with a lot of glazing. But we wanted, some of it is mirrored glass, and behind that mirrored glass is insulated elements of the wall so that they can be used for display purposes from the inside. And it has this nice idea of actually opening, allowing some views into the building, but also reflecting the city and back out again in this mixture of the two. Turning the other way, so this is the great display window here. Turning the other way, this is the design shed, which has got these two great atria spaces with cascade down. And all the way through that building are areas, communal open spaces in the centre, and areas which deal with printing, stitching, weaving, editing, filming, photography, graphics. All of these different design disciplines then come together in this design shed that then is united by this central atria space. So this is going into the building, and this sense of openness and space that you get in the front, the presentation space, cafeteria, which has reception, which has these stairways and ramps and bridges that link different levels within it. And moving back into the design shed, looking down here through one of the atria, a sense of artistic communality, I guess, throughout the building, incorporating some of the older machinery they inherited from their previous workshops. And one of the elements that we worked on a lot was the idea that we might transform some of these very simple, it's a very cheap building, it's just a very simple series of columns, concrete columns and floor plates. But we wanted to mark the 100th centenary of this guy's death, which he was Louis Day, who was a great textile printer in Manchester. So we took one of his prints We incised some MDF to make a formwork. We then had that made into a concrete formwork liner, and working with the concrete guys on site, working really at the extremities of what was possible there, we created these imprinted low relief concrete columns, 7 meters high without a joint in it. And they loved that. They loved that. Being challenged to do something new and different. Great. But the interior, the exterior is black, the interior is grey and white. It's a neutral building, allowing for the art to shine through to colour it. And I've got a little video here, which I hope will work. If I can make it work. Oops, no, let me go back. There we go. Just to show this, because this building works so much better, you see it so much better, and you see the buzz and the life that is generated in it by moving through it. And there's obviously been a big open plan space like this, you have to take a lot of care over acoustics, so every surface where we can afford it is an absorptive surface. The floors are relatively, they're not kind of noisy floors. But what you see is you could wander around and you can see very easily about a dozen different art forms taking place. There's social spaces, social learning spaces. As you move towards the front of the building, there is a kind of elegance to it that is more to do with the presentation of these art forms. And work is always on display at the end of each term. Of course, it goes into exhibition mode, and it gets a real kind of buzz to it. So you get fashion displays, you get ceramics, the place gets full of people, and you really get the sense that it is an integration of all the arts and of fun. So that we were very pleased that got onto the Sterling shortlist last year. It didn't quite make it, but it was actually half the cost of any of the other 6 buildings that are on the list. So that was very important to us, because I think the economy of means is something that we like working with. So next project is there's no clock here telling me how far on I am, but I'm hoping I'm all right. This is the South Bank in London, which is the Hayward Gallery, the Queen Elizabeth Hall, these extraordinary buildings that were built at a time when there was a real interest in heroic modernism. London, as you may know, started north of the river. The South Bank was always the place for sort of transgression. It was where Shakespeare opened the Globe Theatre. It was where dark arts were formed. It was where people went to have fun. London Bridge, and London only had one bridge until about 1650, and it was a place which was kind of out of bounds on the South Bank, and there's something quite nice about the South Bank itself, still feeling it reflects back onto the city, the kind of work of artists and more creative people who are often in a transgressive sort of mode. It was a place also with pleasure gardens. It was a place where eventually got built up by railways, Waterloo Station, and it still is, and this is the current map of London, where actually, there are, it's getting worse and worse. The city has extraordinary wealth coming in from all parts of the world, and users. So this is our site, and it was the site of the Great Exhibition in 1951, just after the war. And the building in the centrepiece there, which is this building, is the Royal Festival Hall, which is the one building that was left over from that festival. So the circular building, the skyline, everything were all destroyed as part of the all temporary building. And then, so we were asked to look at this building, these series of buildings here. which were conceived in the early 60s, as say, built in the 70s, and built between a sort of plaza that's not a plaza between the Royal Festival Hall and the new building. And there's about a 7-metre high changing level up towards the Waterloo Bridge. And the first thing that we did, and I think this is going to be alright, the first thing we did was to talk to lots of people and try to understand these buildings. And there we go. So I'm going to show you a short film which actually talks about the buildings. And I think it's kind of interesting to see 50 years on how people think about these. So this is made by one of my partners, who is a film director.
Is it true that we come alive not once, but many times? We are drawn back.
London as an incredibly cosmopolitan and open place.
The beautiful thing about the Purcell room is the sense of intimacy that you get. It's a very pure place to play in, but when it's full, you know, that real kind of feeling that this place is bursting to the rafters.
One great thing about the Hayward is it's a very flexible space. Each gallery has a really different character, and so it allows a nice variety of pacing that I think really animates your experience of looking at art.
The first time I saw this building was on the front cover of the AR. It's actually the first ever copy of the architectural review that I bought in 1967. And I was just kind of knocked out by it, but it was very much a new kind of architecture in those days. It was sculpture rather than architecture, and it was a kind of challenging response to the kind of politeness of the Royal Festival Hall.
The architects had been interested in thinking about the city as a single building, a city within which all buildings and infrastructure merge together into a single whole. It's a relic of a great idea.
The history of the site always made me so excited, and still does. The Royal Festival Hall was created in 1951 after the Second World War, when people were really trying to think, how do we make the world better? And one of the ways to do that was to create a site which was dedicated to the idea of the people's imagination.
It was a remarkable thing, and people in London looked at it and thought, we're starting again. This is just wonderful. The seeds are flowering.
The Royal Festival Hall was the LCC's prestige building. It was made quite clear to the architects who were going to work on this new scheme around here that whatever they did, it mustn't compromise the Royal Festival Hall. In one way they defer to it, but in other ways they do compete with it without question.
I think it's an incredible place, an emotional place. I really think it's beautiful.
The Royal Festival Hall has a fantastic set of spaces. They're all interconnected, they're full of light, they're quite luxurious actually, which is a great thing, and people feel that they can go from encounter to encounter and see what's on, change their minds, take part in things that they didn't expect to. The Queen's Hall and the Hayward Gallery are wonderful art spaces when you go inside the actual, theatre, performance space or gallery. But the foyer spaces don't draw you in.
The whole idea about these buildings is that they are challenging. There are no facades, there are no elevations. It's a series of terraces. It's a kind of mound of urban concrete topography.
It's probably one of the only places I can think of in the world where this stepped, almost like a mountainside, exists beside the river. So there's wonderful views and wonderful chances for people to feel that they, can stand on top of the world almost. And again, you can't get to them.
There is an awful lot that's wrong with these buildings, and they're really dysfunctional in many ways. I mean, you can see behind us here, one of the major things that's wrong is that when you come out of what was the main entrance to the Royal Festival Hall, what faces you is a service yard, a whole load of white vans, some concrete undercrofts, and I've just been stopped by someone around the corner who says, show me, where's the Hayward Gallery? No one actually finds the entrance first time around.
Crucial part of the original idea was that when you came up to the upper galleries and the upper floor of the Hayward, there would be skylights letting in natural light from above. But unfortunately, for a number of reasons, the skylights in the Hayward haven't worked in about 20 years.
I'm going to cut that short. I just wanted to show you a bit about it because the way we go about things is listening. First of all, you listen to all the people who use the building and the artists, and we're renovating this for the next 25 years and we want to take in as many views as possible. So this is what it looked like when it opened in 1974. This is what it looks like now. Just as a matter of interest, we looked at this little three-dimensional model of it, and we found that actually this much of that form is actually plants and equipment. And this is the beginnings. In fact, it was designed by two members of Archigram, and this is a concrete version of Archigram. What you see is services, but they're services behind bits of concrete rather than metal. It has been used really creatively over the years. It has these amazing concrete terraces, which people have turned into rowing areas. But it now has, as I said earlier on, a whole load of problems to do with the mismatch of services and public spaces. But it's a robust building. There's a lot of fun things that happen there. They turn the terraces into gardens. They turn the terraces into waterfalls, into giant food festivals. The Venezuelan Youth Orchestra comes here. It's a great place for old people. It's a great place to hang around. It's the people look after the gardens here, which produce food. Skateboarders inhabit the undercrofts. Everything and everybody is there and enjoys it. So what you do with it, well, very briefly, what we started out with, having won this competition, was just kind of thinking about how we would kind of continue the building upwards, but in a different sort of language. So retain everything that we could as much as possible, but create these two new elements that sat on above, just resting above the concrete topography, which is the ground plane. So a linear building going along the north side there, along Waterloo Bridge, and the pavilion joining the two. So everything that we did was going to be a new language and a different language and a lightweight language. And this is a concrete model that our model maker in-house made. An early sketch, again, thinking about the way this glazed space would link the sort of semi-detached forms of the Hayward Gallery and the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and this other glazed element might emerge out and face north towards the city. So, in brief, what our program is to renovate the existing venues, which we're doing now. We're just starting that work, and most of that is going to be M&E, MEP work. And then looking at ways in which we can make the whole space work. There are 27 million people visit this site every year. That's the population of Canada. I don't know why I say that, but it always seems to me that Canada is an incredibly large country. 27 million people go across this site every year. And it's dysfunctional. There are staircases everywhere, parents with kids in buggies and wheelchairs, complete disaster. So a lot of it is sorting out that. Recovering the use of these undercroft areas, closing off the service yard that exists between the two buildings and making instead a giant sort of staircase that links you up to the centre of the building, creating a backdrop to both buildings, which is a new linear space for offices, for restaurants, for a poetry library, and creating a new extraordinary space for rehearsal and performance that sits atop the building. And then creating 7 different levels of roof garden. So at the moment they have 2, and we're increasing the number of the green space within the city. A series of models that we've produced. So this is looking from this is a section through Waterloo Bridge here, through the existing gallery there. And you can see behind this glass pavilion that we're creating, this is the glass pavilion, which is a rehearsal and creative space and that floats above the two existing auditoria and above the Hayward Gallery with its roof lights that are now going to be made to work. So that's an amazing challenge. That's where we stand at the moment. We're doing the first phase. It remains to be seen as to how much of it we can raise the money for to do the rest, but there's a huge amount of enthusiasm for it. And the idea here, I suppose, was to create a kind of arts facility. Jude Kelly runs this as a festival site, really. It's no longer kind of precious classical music only venues. It is a festival art site. And the Royal Festival Hall will remain as a distinguished concert venue. The National Theatre will remain as a distinguished theatre. This is the kind of space for fun and relaxation and a different type of integrated arts with its own kind of beacon, which is a space for creating sitting above the existing Hayward Gallery. So that's an image of it at night with the two glass pavilions that we're talking about creating. Now finally, I'd just like to show you a project that is finished. Again, spaces for art in different parts of the world, for us in a very hot climate, for us in Cyprus. Cyprus is the only still sort of divided city in Europe. The Green Line is, you can now go across it, but it was when we first started this project, you couldn't. Turkish side to the north and Greek side to the south. And this extraordinary plan is imagine again this marking on the ground. You know, this is 1550, this is creating these fortifications. How do you create an 1100 star? Which is, these are fortified walls, beautifully created all around to protect the city. And this is our building here, which is right on the edge of the city, which sits between the more medieval and more kind of 18th century now buildings within the city in a different kind of nollie plan and the less dense outer suburban areas. So as our neighbours, we have these some quite precious 19th century buildings, beautifully carved stonework, and on the inside of the city walls there is this extraordinary intimacy, very narrow streets keeping the sun out, different shading devices and paving, etc. We worked a lot with models, looking at structural forms here, Hepworth and Moore, and looking at, and these are all a series of different models and sketches that we did in the development of this scheme, but this was the key one here. And actually this is the one that won us the competition. This was an international competition. And we took along two little models, and we said we want to create a space that contains the galleries, and the brief also has accommodation above in the tower, emerges from the gallery base. We want to create something that is eaten away by courtyard spaces on the ground floor and intermediate floors, maybe in the middle of the tower building, to create a series of gardens. So our model maker made us these two little models, we passed them around, and everybody was delighted by this sort of jewel-like quality of these things. And spaces that we could think about in terms of opening up the courtyard to the street, opening up to the sky, and opening up views to the city. A series of, and now our model then just shows you very, very briefly what we're doing here. So we're creating some open courtyard spaces, 3 floors of a gallery. The red is a restaurant and a library actually above it, and then residential above that. The tower grew as we needed to balance the development funding that was generated by the tower to give us a little bit more budget. But the buildings remain pretty much the same as it was within the competition. Galleries is more of a conventional gallery. It's a temporary space that has 3 different collections from the Leventis Foundation. Mr. Leventis is a wealthy Cypriot art collector. So he has a European collection, a Greek collection, a Cypriot collection. This will effectively become the sort of national gallery for Cyprus, I guess. And this is a photograph of it just 6 months ago when it first opened. So there's quite a grand sort of staircase leading through the 3 floors of the gallery, and and eventually up onto the roof where you have fantastic views across the city. But the masonry enclosure of this building is I suppose, punctured by 1- and 2-story roof lights that bring natural light down into space, highly controlled series of louvers on the roof lights. But there you can see, so we're lighting the second floor down through tubes of light, cannons of light that go down into space. And then the tower emerges as part of the kind of formal assemblage of the site. And the roofs there, you can see the roof lights and the green roof elements in between. So it's a monolithic shape that emerges to, the tower emerges to shade the courtyard, the balconies then emerge to take in a better view. So it's all designed around the shading of light in a sense, and as is the screens that actually cover all of the windows potentially on the restaurant and the gallery space up above. Monolithic structure was the word monolithic kept coming back to us in design of this building. So the stair is a monolithic piece of steel that winds its way up. The building is a monolithic piece of stone that winds its way up. And finally, just as a sort of epilogue, I suppose, I just wanted to show you this, which again is a sort of bit of a contemplation on working collaboratively with artists. 10 years ago, I was privileged to go on a trip inside the Arctic Circle with a group of scientists and artists to experience and explore a landscape that might not be with us for very long, and to draw attention to the dilemma of climate change. We were all asked to make work which illustrated those dilemmas. Our hope was this, which is an icebreaker ship which is marooned in the field in Svalbard, which is 100 miles inside the Arctic Circle. Average temperatures of minus 27 degrees centigrade. If you're out too long, you get frostbite on the face. And the spores cover up everything you've got, everywhere. And there were an amazing series of people there. There were sculptors, Rachel Whiteread, Anthony Gormley, Alex Hartle. There was the novelist Ian McEwan. There were scientists from Greenpeace. And people who would tell the story in very, very different ways. And I was very privileged to work with Anthony Gormley. And we just started playing in the snow, in a sense, and creating form and sculpture. Anthony's preoccupations began, as they always do, with the human form, creating spaces for inhabitation. And we talked a lot, as we were in the tea breaks, we talked a lot about form, and again going back to the very primitive forms that are derived from the earth. And he talked a lot about Mycenaean Pylos and the Greek traditions. I said that my favourite building in the whole world is this, which is in Lalibela, which is actually, this is what you see. Well, actually you see this when you approach it. And it's an extraordinary building that is completely monolithic, completely created by extraction. So it's the Coptic church about 1,000 years ago, seeing this rock and digging down. And you dig down 3 stories and you create a solid block of church. And then you excavate it to make the internal spaces. And it sits there as a totally monolithic structure. At the same time as we were working on the Leventis building, which we got this obsession with monoliths. And this is the European interpretation of the way it was built. So here we are, Anthony beginning to build a snow cave, a space for inhabitation. And I was preoccupied by something else, which was actually thinking about going back to the sustainability issues that also are a preoccupation of ours, and thinking about how you deal with, how you sort of recognize a kilogram of CO2. Like we now have to, in England, we have to talk about X kilograms of CO2 per square metre as a rating system for our buildings. And we have to talk about the number of miles that our car can go when it's producing a kilogram of CO2. So that somehow, that becomes a kind of significant unit. And I worked out that a kilogram of CO2 is 0.54 of a cubic meter. And so I just started creating this simple form, which represents that kilogram of CO2. And then we started working more collaboratively, and we built this monolith, which is a hollow monolith, which, using snow, but if you imagine when there's zero humidity and minus 27, the snow that you are cutting out of the ground has exactly the consistency of styrofoam. So you can saw it, and you can hold a very large lump of it, and it's got no weight at all. And so we don't have much snow, I guess, in India. When we play with snow, we often stick snow together because you make snowballs and things. You can't. This is sugar. This is like sugar. So this was created by sawing the snow and using it as ashlar blocks, really. And so this is what we made, and it became, Anthony called it 3 main places. The main place, which is the upright tower in the centre, is the same volume as that almost like coffin-like space that I created. And it became a representation of the human form, and we worked on it together with the abstracted orifices that Anthony's used in a lot of his simple sculptures before. And for me it became emblematic of, it's kind of interesting because it was 3 months after my partner, Richard Fielding, set up a business with, died tragically, very suddenly. And it sort of became, and he was supposed to have gone on this trip. So this became emblematic of Richard. And well, I'll leave you with that, I guess. This image of Richard standing there as sentinel in this extraordinary landscape that is about to disappear, and thinking about the way we create form that has hopefully here some ecological meaning, some humanitarian meaning, and comes out of a really rich collaboration in both design and in making. Thank you very much.